Welcome to episode number 52 of the On the Blue Line podcast. We call this Monday Morning Roll Call. I'm your host, Wayne Mulder, and this week, a look back and a look ahead. Monday Morning Roll Call starts now.
On my honor, I will never betray my badge, my integrity, my character, or the public trust. I will always have the courage to hold myself and others accountable for their actions. I will always uphold the Constitution, the community, and the agency I serve.
It is hard to believe we have been going for 1 year. I want to thank each and every one of you for listening. As of March 17th, we will have recorded, this week is our 52nd episode. So for 52 weeks now, I've put out a podcast that each of you have been willing to listen to. And I cannot thank you enough for doing so. It's been amazing. It's been an amazing journey each and every step. And on March 17th, that'll be next week when we had released our very first episode. So it's been great. I mean, seeing the growth that we've seen on social media, the growth that we've seen on these platforms. I often joke I've got more listeners than I do family members. So that's good. That means a few of you I'm not related to. So I greatly appreciate that. But in all seriousness, it's been a very, very neat journey. One of the first things, and the reason I call this a look back and a look ahead, is the look back. I just wanted to talk about and mention a couple of the podcasts that seem to have the most popularity and going solely by download numbers. But I picked 5 that were the ones that absolutely seem to be getting the most traction. And I just wanted to mention them. That way you can go back and take a look at them if you haven't had the opportunity to listen to them. Each of these I will put in the show notes, so you don't have to worry about that. But the first one that has a lot of traction is the Importance of Friendship. It was a interview room episode, number 3, with my good friend Kevin Kasner, and where we really sat down. We talked about the importance of true relationships and building them around our authentic selves and not using masks and that we wear, to just have surface relationships. It's about truth with each other. One of the other ones that's got quite a bit of popularity is the importance of a morning routine. And that was episode 5 of the Monday Morning Roll Call. And it really is just talking about taking ownership in your morning and how having ownership in the morning can kind of give you control over the entire day. One of the other ones that's real popular is the choosing to be uncomfortable. And that was Monday Morning Roll Call 7. Sometimes I think that we forget that uncomfortableness, doing hard things, can actually put us on the trajectory to do great things. And we so often miss that, right? One of the other ones, hit the reset button. That would be number 14 in the Monday Morning Roll Call series. And that one I actually had the opportunity of recording while I was essentially on vacation, but I was in Bangor, Maine writing by myself. And I had a week to just kind of reset. And I had an opportunity to talk about it and talk about that importance of taking time to reset. And then lastly, of the top 5 is Surviving the Law Enforcement Profession. And that was Monday Morning Roll Call 32. And in that one, I talk about that great book that I've mentioned actually several times, The Emotional Survival for Law Enforcement by Dr. Gil Martin. And I also talk about the Officer Down Memorial page as well as Blue Help and a lot of the work that they're doing and just having intentionality and how important intentionality is to getting through the law enforcement profession. So I encourage you to go back and take a look at those if you haven't. I think that you're going to find them enjoyable. The other thing I wanted to do this week before we start looking ahead is I wanted to talk about a good news story. That's something we did early on Monday Morning Roll Calls, and I know we've kind of gotten away from it, but it'll come and go. I'm going to try to do more of them as I can. So this week's positive news story was actually from March 5th, and it is Canine Officer Jason Banase, if I am pronouncing his name right, which I'm highly likely not. But out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, he had got dispatched with a partner over to a 911 call at an elementary school. And he had no idea how his day would end when he goes to this 911 open line call. So they get there, they check the place out, they determine everything's just fine, right? So the officer wandered over, and his daughter happens to go to that same school. She's in the 2nd grade class. So he goes in there, and just his luck, it's Read Across America Day. So his daughter, Giovanni, the teacher said, hey, listen, it would be a great idea since you're here that you read a story to the kids. So he's like, okay, how hard can it be? What's the book? And she said, well, Dr. Seuss, The Cat in the Hat. Okay, I'll do it. He, quoting, says, what was funny is I remember the book. I mean, who doesn't? but I do not remember it being that long and difficult to read. 20 minutes and 61 pages later, he was happy to be able to get through the tongue-twisting challenge. I said, sure, thinking the book was 10 pages of simple reading, he wrote on a post on Facebook. Then she handed me the 61-page book filled with the complicated, poetic, tongue-tying phrases that would trip up the most experienced of professional orators. So he made it through the book and ended up even wearing a Dr. Seuss hat when it was all said and done. But he said that as he went through, he was able to discuss and incorporate some very important life lessons with the kids and to kind of go over some ideas and thoughts that the book kind of opened the conversation for. And I love the statement. He says when he talks about why he did it and the opportunity of this impromptu lesson, he said, I got into law enforcement to help people and to interact with my community. And what better way to do that? And we definitely couldn't agree more. Of course, his daughter gave the rave review when asked how she thought he did. She just said, eh. So I have a son, and that would be his answer as well. So, but Officer, I'm telling you, you did a great job. And I love these type stories, and I love people getting out of the community. And yes, his daughter went there, but he didn't have to read the book to that class. And yet those kids are going to remember that. They're going to remember the day that this officer sat down and took the time to teach them a lesson out of this book. So I love it. And that's the kind of story that I love to get out and to talk to you about. So this week, I just got back from Orlando, Florida. And of course, I live in Central Florida, but closer to the coast. But I just got back from Orlando and I had the opportunity to go to something called PodFest. And I wasn't going to talk about this. In fact, I was going to solely talk about what I was going to do or what the vision was going forward. And I'm just going to touch on that a little bit because I wanted to talk about this amazing experience that I had over there. So what's PodFest? That's probably the first question you're asking. PodFest is a convention, really, for podcasters. And because it's a convention for podcasters in general, all sorts of people were at this convention. All sorts of people from all different types of walks of life. I mean, who gets attracted to podcasting, right? I mean, that is kind of the question. Who comes to this and is like, I want to be a podcaster? Well, usually anybody who says that or feels that they have something to say, right? I mean, that is what podcasting is. So because of that, anybody in any kind of belief system or thought process from all walks of life come together because they have something to say to people who would listen to whatever that message is. So there was a very eclectic group of people at this event. That's what I'm trying to say. But I had the opportunity, I hadn't even heard of it 2 weeks ago, and I had been invited to something called Military Creator Con by a friend. In fact, he had been a previous guest of the show. So I wanted to check it out. So I got to go over there, I got to spend time. And what was so neat, unfortunately, I was not in the service. At the time, I wasn't able to due to a medical condition, but I was not able to go into the service. However, I am obviously in the law enforcement profession, as you know, if you've been listening to this show at all, or even really kind of pay attention to the title of the show. So that's my experience. So I wasn't in the service. And for those of you who were, thank you and welcome home. But what was so neat to me is as I sat through the event and as I spent most of Friday in this room with men and women who have served at all different levels, all different branches of service here in the United States, it was such a neat opportunity to see the community and to be welcomed by that community. That was what was so neat to me. I mean, these were people, like-minded people, people who think like you do, they think like I do, that see the world the way we do, see the need for things like this, see the need for community. And that was one of the lessons, one of the takeaways that I had. And one of the things I wanted to share is how strong this community was, how strong that relationship, that camaraderie that I saw, and then the acceptance of people like myself into that community to hang out and have conversations and talk about what can we do to help not only the military community, but what can we do to help our brothers and sisters in blue, brothers and sisters in red, or second responders. Sorry, fire guys, I just have to say it. No, but seriously, first responders, we all go through these same things. We all see the same trauma. We all go through these same issues. And it's neat to see the community coming together. And I know I use that word over and over again. And if you've been listening for any length of time, you're like, you talk about community all the time. Well, don't worry. I'm going to talk about it again in just a few minutes because that is the core of what we are all about. So, the other thing that really came to me is this whole life saving mission. And what I mean by that is talking to some of these other groups and what they are trying to do to save lives and to have each other's back. I had the opportunity to sit down with a guy, and I'm not going to drop a bunch of names because there were so many neat people I met that I'm hoping to have some of them on the interview room, and you're going to be able to hear their story from them. But one in particular was this Michael Hoskins. He's here in Florida, and he has the Heroes Hope Network. And he was the one that had told me he just had a great way of talking on how, when we were in the service was his experience, or if you're a first responder or in the law enforcement, which is my experience, in these businesses, when you're out there, you have each other's back. You have somebody like your mission is what's kind of in front of you, right? So whatever it is, let's say from the law enforcement, my mission is, let me simplify this. If we're sitting at dinner, cops sit where? Typically we sit with our backs to the wall. And if someone else is with us and I get that prime spot with my back to the wall, then that means your back is exposed. So whose job is it to protect your back? That's right, it's mine. And vice versa. And I know that and you know that because that's what we do. You have my back and I have your back. That's the way it works. And what we're finding and what we're seeing is that people are getting out of the service. People are getting out of that camaraderie. They're getting out of that relationship that they had in law enforcement. And they don't feel like anyone's got their back anymore. And that's where we're seeing this increase of, and obviously, you get into PTSD and we get into some of these mental health issues and we get into trauma and we get into, they go so much deeper. And I understand that. But at a surface level, sometimes it's as simple as just knowing you've got a buddy out there, knowing you've got somebody that has your back, knowing you've got somebody to talk to, knowing there's someone you can sit down and have a beer with, and they're not going to try to psychoanalyze you. And if you're in law enforcement, they're not going to try to take you away from your job, but rather they're going to listen to you and hear your story. And that's part of community, right? So it's about community. It's about lives saved. And then the third takeaway that I had in just this very short period of time was it's about faith. I had the opportunity of meeting some people that just truly had, I know I dance around the subject a lot, but these were people who believed in God. They had a faith in what they were doing, and they believed in a mission mindset. And mission from the military standpoint, mission from the law enforcement standpoint. In other words, there is a particular mission that needs to be accomplished, and I have that. But then also mission in the grander meaning, mission as in something that I have been called up into and something that I have been called to complete. And it was very encouraging to see this. And I just mentioned that because this week's episode, what I wanted it to be was a look back. I wanted to talk about those other podcasts and encourage you that if you haven't listened to them, go back to them. I'm hoping also that every podcast that you listen to, that the next one is a little bit better than the last. So when you go back and listen to him, I hope you listen to him and say, man, he's gotten better. And if not, drop me a note. Say, hey, you went wrong somewhere along this journey. But seriously, the goal is that we get a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better each and every time, no matter what it is, right? So then the other thing that I want to mention is, so what does it look like? What's the vision? Where are we going? What is On the Blue Line all about? Well, first and most obviously, we're a podcast. Well, and why are we a podcast? Why is that what we decided? Because like I said just a few minutes ago, it's really about having a voice. And this is a voice that I hope is for you, the law enforcement officer, for you, the first responder, for you, the person who's sitting in your car right now. Maybe you're at work. Maybe you're at home. Maybe you're at the gym. Maybe you're out for a walk, whatever you're doing. And maybe you feel like I do. Maybe you feel like, does anyone out there really listen? Does anyone out there really care? Does anyone understand the stresses that I have? Does anyone know what it's really like to work a 12-hour shift? Does anyone know what it's like to work a 12-hour shift and then have kids? And then have a wife, and then have a family, extended family, and then have events that I have to be at, and then have admin saying, I got to get this done, and you got to get that done. Does anybody understand that? And what do I do with all of that? Because it starts to wear on you over time, and at some point, you get to who's listening? Who cares? Who knows? Well, that's what this podcast is all about, right? Like that's what I want to bring to you each and every week. I'm hoping that I bring you something actionable that is going to help you where you're at, because that's where I'm at and that's where I've been at. And together we can get through this. And that is the second part. It's about community. But not necessarily just community in this idea that we're a group of people, even though that is what a community is, but positivity. See, our outlook has to be a strong correlation and will be a strong correlation to our outcome. So if we want to have a good outcome, we have to have a positive outlook. It's how we see the world. It's the lens through which we judge things. So we're building a community, and that community is built on positivity and then autonomy. I believe in empowering people to take control of their own lives. See, this isn't about me telling you to do something and then you going out and do it. This is about me showing you the journey, the path, the roads, the walls, what I've seen, and then encouraging you, giving you the encouragement, becoming the cheerleader, saying, hey, when you get done with this run, or maybe you're sitting on the couch right now and you don't feel like going for a run, saying, listen, I've been there. I'm definitely more the couch guy than the run guy. But I understand that there's a time that I have to be the run guy, because health is part of what keeps me able to show up stronger and with strength for the things that I'm called to do. And that's what I want you to understand. It's about autonomy. It's about positivity and about autonomy. So this week, I hope that if this is the first time you're joining us, this one went a little bit longer. These are usually tried to be in that 10 to 15 minutes, but I come back with just so much excitement, so much that I want to tell you about what we're doing and what the future is going to look like, and some of the guests that you're going to be hearing on the interview room in the weeks ahead. So this week, I encourage you to think about your role. Think about where you're at when it comes to community. Think about where you're at when it comes to saving the lives of others, being that battle buddy, being that brother in blue, being that sister, being there for the others. Where are you at? And then understanding that it's about faith, and faith in a stronger sense, faith in where you're at, and faith in the mission ahead. So, what do I ask of you? Just please keep listening. Please keep listening. Please keep sharing. Please keep telling others. I believe in the power of partnerships. I believe in the future, and I believe that the future is going to be even greater than this last year. These 52 weeks have been absolutely amazing, but I tell you, it's just the beginning. So thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for telling others. That does it for this week's Monday Morning Roll Call. I hope to see you next Monday at Roll Call, and in the meantime, I will see you on the Blue Line. If this is your first time listening, or for current information on what is happening, I encourage you to go to our website, ontheblueline.com. Again, ontheblueline.com. On there, you're going to find various links to our podcast, news about what's coming up, and links to our closed Facebook group. This podcast is available anywhere and everywhere that you prefer to stream your podcast, including Apple and Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Thank you so much for joining us as we strive to make a difference in the personal lives of all those who serve. Have a great week.